Good. The question that we're pondering now is, what is the prayer that is silently, wordlessly coming from your soul, underneath all of those spoken prayers, underneath the marvelously formulated ideals and visions? What's the yearning? What's the longing that spills from your heart and flavors the entirety of your experience? Think of that. It isn't for those worldly things, the things that you place on your vision board, the things that you pray to the Lord, may I please have the thing that I say that I want right now. Your embodied prayer is something far more sacred. Let's look very quickly at the Map of Consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins, because this is going to serve to understand how the soul song works. This is a scale of ascending awareness of your divine nature. We're relatively familiar with this. At the bottom here, at level 0, is spiritual death. This is total illusion, complete despair, living in notness. And at the tippity top, at 1000, is complete remembered knowing. This is where the universe is self. This is Christ. This is the ultimate anointing. I know who I am. So this is a scale of truth. It's a scale of love. Love is the purest and strongest frequency of energy. So the more of it you embody, the more powerful is your soul song. And that's why they say that the path gets narrower and narrower, because the further you go into God, the less possible it is for false steps to lead you anywhere. False structures are very weak. This is increasing power. This is increasing power. And you reside not down here in the levels of the systems of the world. You reside in a much higher level of consciousness, a much higher realm, where your movements transcend structure. Your movements belong to grace. And thank goodness. Now, listen, the false structures belong in the lower levels of consciousness, and they are very weak, and they are mincemeat in the presence of truth. Now, the volume with which your inner song penetrates the clouds of the world depends on the size of your self-realization. That means that where you live in the universe of self-realization, which dimension you live in, this is what decrees the volume of your inner soul song. Do you understand that? So if you live hidden behind layers and layers and layers of masks and identities, then your soul song is but a whisper and can barely be heard. And then you have to live by the systems of the world, and they will keep you safe. Law and governance keeps you safe. And those worldly wantings, those relationships and the finance, the health, the equality and justice for all, they become your guiding principles in these areas. And you follow the systems in 4D, in time and space. You follow these systems as you understand them, and you orchestrate the goodness of your life. But since you have done the work over lifetimes, or perhaps just in this one, if there is only this one life, here and now, then you've shed many of those outer facades, and you've emerged in spiritual courage as the I am truth dragonfly. Remember that metaphor of the I am truth dragonfly? You've emerged as that now, which means that your soul song is loud and crisp and clear. So that means that in these more powerful dimensions of consciousness up here, where you now resides, or you wouldn't be on this call, your embodied prayer is a vibration in your creative womb that you are constantly birthing, whether you want to or not. Do you understand that? Give me a nod or a shake. Yes. Good. It means that your embodied prayer is a vibration in your creative womb that you are constantly birthing, whether you want to or not. And your liberation is in your permission to trust it fully and completely. This prayer is heard, it is received, and it is allowed by the governance of the universe, by providence, by the unending knowing of who you are. You needn't uphold it. You needn't fight for it. You need only to follow it. And that's a real nuisance for ego, who doesn't just go away just because you know who you are. Oh, we've got the little darlings on the call. Look at these ones. Oh my goodness. If you can't see them, scroll to Maria and Eleanor and see the gorgeous little ones. Hello, darling. Hello. Hello. Hey. My loves, ego doesn't go away just because you know who you are. Ego still has her desires, and she's very clever. She's very clever. In fact, she's far more clever than your soul. She wants safety. She wants validation of worth. She wants control. She wants revenge cloaked as justice. She wants self-preservation and denial. She wants imagined material desires. She wants honor for her legacy. And ego will try to get what she wants. But because of where you now are in your growth, ego will fail. But don't be too quick to celebrate, because you may get tempted to see failure as your failure, to see ego's failure as your failure. Ego will want to believe that, or will want you to believe that anyway. You'll say, oh, I've got blockages and limiting paradigms. Oh, these things keep happening. Oh, something's going wrong with the RV again. Why, oh, why does this keep happening to me? I must be on the wrong path. I must be doing something wrong. But the moment you settle into the allowing of what is, you'll see the magic forming. I'm going to explain this. Oh, it's 2:22. I'm going to explain this in a little moment using a music metaphor. Are there any musicians in the room? Do we have any musical geniuses? Mary, Saver. Thank you very much. Good. Okay, then you can help me correct this metaphor if I get it wrong. I had to call my sister to get the proper vocabulary right. But you're going to enjoy this because this is wonderful. Remember, we're speaking about the soul song here. We're speaking about the embodied vibration that is spilling out through you, regardless of the upper levels of words and decrees. And we're speaking of this to understand what that embodied prayer is, and to isolate, identify, magnify, and honor the silent spell that's held in your vibrational womb. So, Saver, you can help me with this vocabulary if I get it right, if I get it wrong. Listen, in a piece of music, there are many layers. Think of your soul song now. Think of who you are and what you're decreeing about yourself and about the world, about God in your movements in life. In a piece of music, there are many layers. You're a soul song. There are many layers. The top melody is monophonic. It's one-dimensional. It's like an outline. I want to be successful, so I will do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. One note after another. It's monophony. It's one melody, one dimension of movement. Yes? A polyphonic sound is a collection of multiple melodies that play together. And that's what makes gorgeous music. Like a collaboration, perhaps, like a coming together of your works and mine, or the coming together of your genius, your magic, and your hands, the way you place your hands in the world. And below this is the undertone, the bass line, which anchors all of the harmonies above, and it anchors it into purpose, into meaning, into true cadence of song. And this is known as the dominance. Now, in Western music, a scale has 8 notes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And do is the home key. The dominance is the main chord of undertones, right? That's known as the dominance. And although the polyphonic melody above the dominance can modulate in any direction, as long as it is anchored in the dominance, the melody will lead home to the home key. Yes? In consciousness, the home key is Om. Om. The primordial vibration of the universe. The dominance is one level up from the home key. That is, it is where you go from being the primordial tone of the universe to being an individuality. So the dominance here is the chord made of the specific vibrations of your core values. And at your level of consciousness, where you reside on that imaginary scale, in other words, the amount of truth and love that emanates from your vibrational womb means that this chord is ever present, and all of your harmonies, all of your polyphonic harmonies of your genius and your magic, and the ways that you collaborate with those that you're in relationship with, and all of the energetics of all of the environments in which you reside as a presence of the Lord, all of those are anchored into that dominant chord, which means that any false note you play cannot be sustained. And even if you modulate your polyphonic magic in any direction, your manifestation efforts in any direction other than truth, since you are anchored in your baseline undertone, you will always be led home. Here's a practical example of what that looks like. In the last year and a half, I have manifested 4 cars. Wow, how impressive. Why aren't you applauding? Please, no, it's ridiculous. The first car I manifested was a Sebring convertible. It was a Chrysler Sebring. It was silver with a black roof, and it had bits of rust on it, and it had little flappy bits, and it made some clunking sounds. And it was a gift from the universe when I needed it the most. We'd just arrived back in this country with only $100, and we didn't have a car, and I would ride the bus for 2 hours every day in the heat to get my mum to her doctor's appointments. And after a fairly short amount of time, this car was gifted. Know that what you need is always provided when you are anchored in your baseline. Understand that. So 2 hours of being on the bus in the heat every single day is a small sacrifice to make to be gifted the very thing that you need. But honestly, I loved this car. It was gifted out of the blue. It wasn't the one I would have chosen. I would have chosen something else, but it was the one that I got, so we'll make do, right? I did love the car. It gave me a sort of a funny feeling of home, but frankly, we'd just arrived back in a house with walls after a long spell in the wilderness, and at the time, anything really could have given me that warm, fuzzy feeling of belonging. But it wasn't the coolest car possible. It wasn't cool at all, really. And I heard more than once, "Oh, but with your stature and talent and expertise, why are you driving that whole thing?" And I went, "You're right. I deserve better. I'm a goddess." So I manifested another car, also a convertible, this one peacock blue, with thick black rims. It was sweet. I looked absolutely incredible, zooming along the beach in that thing with my headscarf and my big glasses. I was the bee's knees. But man, this car cost a lot of money to run. It needed the gears fixing and it needed some other stuff fixing. And one day it broke down and we took it to the mechanic dude and he opened up the gearbox and all of these bits of clunky bits fell out. And he goes, "How is this thing even riding?" And I was like, "Grace." But we had to get rid of this peacock blue car and we managed to get it replaced with another super cool model. And it was just the same as that peacock blue one, except it was lilac, which is still pretty epic, right? So there I was again, driving along, super sweet, looking epic. But again, bits kept going wrong with it. And it finally died one day when I was driving over the bridge. I sent a picture of it to Sylvia with me with my selfie against this broken down car. It started smelling as I was driving up over this bridge and there was this smoke coming out of it and then it just stopped. It just broke down right when I was on the 4-lane bridge. And by the grace of God, it just kind of sailed down to a nice graceful standstill safely, thank goodness, and it met its maker on the other side of the road. There goes my second really cool, sweet car that I had manifested. The next car that came to replace it, this time without my meddling, this time without my conscious magic to make it happen, was a Sebring convertible, silver, with a black roof, exactly the same as the first one. How bizarre, I thought. How bizarre that when I took my fingers out of the works and I just let Providence do what it needed to do, I arrived back with that boring old thing that we started with. But listen, Spirit knew something about that car that I hadn't realized. And it wasn't the specific car itself. Because it wasn't the same car. It was the same model. It was the same make. It was the same color. Spirit knew something about this manifestation that I hadn't realized. That uncool car is now the one that I love the most, more than any other car I've ever had or could imagine. And do you know why? It's the funniest thing. This morning I was standing on my stoop and I was waving goodbye to my husband and my children as they went off to drama camp. And I sank in to such a profound, deep joy, a really deep bliss. Because listen, this car reminds me so much of the car of my childhood. It's almost exactly the same. It's not the same, but it's almost exactly the same. And as I can see my husband in it and my 2 little children, it transports me 30 years to some of the deepest, happiest memories of my life. And I can only hear this stirring of this deep joy, this deep belonging, when I'm not focused on the top level monophony. That love is so deep and so mystical in a way that I couldn't have designed by picking out the perfect car or from the car lot. or by getting out my wallet and my endless checks and purchasing the coolest, trendiest model. This love is so deep and so mystical in a way that only God knew how meaningful these moments on the front stoop would become to me. A portal opened thanks to an old silver car, a lot more real and a lot more precious than looking cool in peacock blue. You see, I can try to wrangle my superficial desires, and if I were less realized on this scale, if I was more systemized, then my wrangling might be successful. But since my embodied prayer for truth, grace, mastery, and magic is so much stronger than the works of my thoughts and hand, every manifestation that I force into the world will very quickly fail and be replaced by something far better. Thank goodness. What is your embodied prayer? You have divine permission to release all your attachment to the way things appear to be in the 4 dimensions of actualized form. And you have complete permission to emerge as a wide awake, enlightened spirit, singing your soul song, the top layers of harmony, your genius, your imagination, your inspiration, your vibrational magic, and the workings of your hand. But let them be anchored in the deep baseline, the chord of your core, unique values, a unique chord that is special only to you, that is fundamentally a song of your purpose and place in the great big kaleidoscope of the world. This is your embodied prayer. And because of the magnitude and magnetic nature of your love, because of the weight of your consciousness, this is the eminence that is coming from you at all times. It supersedes every one of your top level harmonies. It is ever present in every single thing that you put your hands to. And when your manifestations fail, I can promise you, because of who you are and because of who God is in you, when your manifestations fail, it is not a failure. It's a success, because it means you are one step closer to truth. This is why the path gets narrower and narrower the further along your journey you get. The closer you get to home, the path gets narrower. Like through the eye of a needle, it is necessary for you to release all the extraneous false notes, because there is only one way to God, and that is your way. I am the way. Thank goodness for your embodied prayer that alchemizes by default any lesser forms of manifestation that you may attempt to put your hands to. Ladies, what is your embodied prayer? Settle in. Breathe in deep. Attune your body so that you are comfortable. Attune your vibration so that you are balanced. Attune your mind so that you are peaceful. And allow your space to be open wide open to divine suggestion only, held safely in sovereign poise, available only to grace. The gentle knowing of truth as it arises in your spirit, intending to recognize the undertones and the overtones of your soul song. To know beyond all doubt what you're truly calling for, what that baseline of unique chords is in your way of being, in your energetic cauldron, and settle into deep permission to allow that to be just enough. More fulfilling than any rearrangement of the world, knowing that these undertones alchemize your environment by default the moment you take your hands off the trappings of the workings of the world. Your baseline brings in the anchoring of all the harmonies and brings you to the home key and calls you back in to the ultimate harmony. Trusting, you are trusting now, you are deeply, profoundly trusting now that you needn't form the circumstances to make these prayers come true. Quantum does that. The baseline of your soul song, your embodied prayer, is enough to ensure that quantum forms around you in the highest ideal, in alignment with what those core values are. Know that you are open to receiving from within the knowing of this chord, so that you can recognize when things in circumstance, in time and space appear to be going wrong, appear to be false notes, appear to be broken or falling or crumbling against what you had envisioned. To know once and for all that this is the result of alchemy, that it is your presence that is alchemizing a circumstance less than truth, a manifestation less than love. Here are 222 good tones for your baseline. There are infinitely more. Just receive them in vibration, and notice which ones strike a chord in you, and let them help you recognize that embodied prayer that is playing ceaselessly in your soul song. Are you ready? You can settle down, you can settle in, be present and poised. Ne gong, if you like, and receive these 222 good tones for your baseline chord. Acceptance, accomplishment, accountability, accuracy, achievement, adaptability, alertness, altruism, ambition, amusement, assertiveness, attentiveness, awareness, balance, beauty, boldness, bravery, brilliance, calm, candor, capability, care, certainty, challenge, charity, cleanliness, clarity, cleverness, comfort, commitment, common sense, communication, community, compassion, concentration, competence, confidence, connection, consciousness, consistency, contentment, contribution, control, conviction, cooperation, courage, courtesy, creation, creativity, credibility, curiosity, decisiveness, dedication, dependability, determination, development, devotion, dignity, discipline, discovery, drive, effectiveness, efficiency, empathy, empowerment, endurance, energy, enjoyment, enthusiasm, equality, ethics, experience, exploration, expression, fairness, family, fame, fearlessness, feeling, ferocity, fidelity, focus, foresight, fortitude, freedom, friendship, fun, generosity, genius, giving, goodness, grace, gratitude, greatness, growth, happiness, hard work, harmony, health, honesty, honor, hope, humility, humor, imagination, improvement, independence, individuality, innovation, inquisitiveness, insight, inspiration, integrity, intelligence, intensity, intuition, joy, justice, kindness, knowledge, leadership, learning, liberty, logic, love, loyalty, magic, mastery, maturity, meaning, moderation, motivation, openness, optimism, order, organization, originality, passion, patience, peace, performance, persistence, playfulness, poise, power, presence, productivity, professionalism, prosperity, purpose, quality, realism, reason, recognition, recreation, reflectivity, respect, responsibility, restraint, results, reverence, rigor, risk, satisfaction, security, self-reliance, selflessness, serenity, service, sharing, significance, silence, simplicity, sincerity, skill, skillfulness, smarts, solitude, spirit, spirituality, spontaneity, stability, status, stewardship, strength, structure, success, support, surprise, sustainability, talent, teamwork, temperance, thankfulness, thoroughness, thoughtfulness, timeliness, tolerance, tradition, tranquility, transparency, trust, trustworthiness, truth, understanding, uniqueness, unity, valor, victory, vigor, vision, vitality, wealth, welcome, winning, wisdom, wonder. Those are 222 tones, and all of these tones, my loves, are in your song. But the baseline chord, the collection of those that play most fervently, most deeply, and are your dominant baseline, anchoring into purpose and meaning, those are your embodied prayer. And since you are true, these will come to pass. Loves, your embodied prayer is your default alchemy. These fundamental vibrations live in your energetic womb of creation. and for all of your polyphonic desires, for all of the strands of the melodies of your human worldly wantings, as you play this marvelous game of life over the course of your many, many years, and in all of your adventures, this bass line will always bring you home. And you may modulate your song in any direction. You may play the false notes. You may take the wrong steps. But if you anchor yourself into this baseline dominance, then by the nature of your being, you will alchemize your manifestations. And what is unlike your values will fall away. Your peacock blue car will fall into little tiny bits, because there is a truer, deeper, more mystical manifestation wanting to emerge. And the nature of your being is what will alchemize by default that which you're calling into creation. This is what will come to pass for you, because you have chosen to be one on an ascending path of consciousness. You have chosen to participate in the road of improvement. You've chosen to be an anchor and a weight in the world for the polyphonic melody of all of humanity. You have chosen to be the baseline chord in our collective soul song, the soul song that we together as brothers and sisters, as beloved children of God, are singing together with our voices, calling for improvement, calling for peace on earth, calling for a reunification of humanity. You have said in your heart and out into the world that you will be the baseline chord. That means, my darling, that your embodied prayer will contribute to alchemizing everything that's going on in the world. Do you have a sense of foreboding? Do you have a sense that something is going on out there? You're right, my loves. This is the apocalypse. These are the end times. This is the truth expansion unlike it's ever been seen before in the history of humanity. And thank goodness for you. Thank goodness for you and for your baseline, for your embodied prayer, because, my darling, you are the medicine. You are the medicine. I hope that listening to and receiving the vibration of those 222 good, true tones has struck a chord in your embodied prayer and allowed you to recognize some of the coordinates of what that deepest sacred spell is that is held in the depths, in the belly of your soul, and that you can recognize in your life some of the upper layers of the polyphonic melody that may or may not be in accord with the embodied prayer. Bring those things into alignment, or release those things, and find a smoother, more graceful, more powerful manifestation, actualization of what your truest desires are. Love, this is magic in the most sovereign way. In week 1, we went through the core principles, the framework for practicing good, clean, altruistic, loving magic. And in week 2, we talked about the 3 categories of applying practical alchemy to real life. And this week, the undertone, the anchoring baseline, the deep embodied prayer that always leads you home. Thank you for following the Sovereign Magic series, girls. I love you all very, very much. We'll meet back in 1 week. We're going to start something altogether different. Still magical, still sovereign, but new. That's it. Who has questions or observations or stories of magic in your life? Who has testimonies for how magic has shown up in these last 3 weeks? If you do, either share them here or pop them in the group, post them in the group along the week so that we can all join in to celebrate or to pray with you and for those that you love. Each of you I love very much. Sylvia, Seva, Sarah, Eleanor, Maria, and all our beloveds who couldn't come today. Thank you for being part of this marvelous group, the Oasis. In love, goodbye.